Hello, this is Andy, and we're doing a special recording of the Enfolding Vision Plan for the congregations of Trinity and First Reformed Church of Hospers. On January 20th of 2019, Trinity presented this plan to both congregations, but there were many who were not able to be at that meeting, and still others that have more questions, and we wanted to provide this presentation to as many who would take the time to read it, to look over it. We want as many in our congregations as possible to know what's happening, and so that they're able to pray and discern together with the leadership of both churches to really ask the question, is this what God is calling us to? Is God calling Trinity and First Reformed Church of Hospers to enfold together to become one church in multiple locations? So this is that presentation. We'll do a little bit shorter version than was done, but we want to go through all the material for you as well. The first thing we'll begin with is a short history of both Trinity Reformed Church and First Reformed Church of Hospers, as well as their current reality. So Trinity was founded in 1919 as part of a church split from First Reformed Church. And the main reason that motivated that is the desire to have worship services in both Dutch and English. And what motivated that is that the older generation spoke Dutch and the younger generation spoke English. And those that founded Trinity wanted to see multiple generations worshiping together. In 1927, Trinity began worshiping in all English. In 1975, Trinity started the Tulip Festival worship service to reach out to the campers and carnival workers. In 1990, the second service was started, which introduced new forms of worship and music. This was a contemporary style that at the time was pretty controversial, but it saw growth in new families. It was reaching people that the traditional worship service was not at the time. In 2002, Trinity sent their first mission team to Chiapas, Mexico. Now, Trinity has always supported a large number of RCA missionaries and been pivotal in giving to global mission causes since its beginning, but this was the first time that Trinity sent some of its own people on a short-term missions trip. In 2013, Trinity moved into their St. Paul facility. Current reality of Trinity. Trinity has been blessed with incredible growth over the last 5 years, going from a church of around 550 to about 1,000 average attendance on Sunday. And this has been an incredible blessing, but it's come with several challenges as well. It's put some strain on our staffing, leadership structures, systems, processes, many ways in which Trinity is trying to keep up with the changes and the growth that they're experiencing. Trinity continues to attract new and increasingly diverse people who are looking for a different kind of church experience. That increasingly diverse population is diverse as far as ethnicity and background. We're seeing more minorities become a part of our church. We're seeing different denominations become a part of our church, and we're even seeing people with a diversity in belief, meaning that there are people in our seats on Sunday that haven't yet accepted Christ and yet are showing up to hear and explore and wonder what this is about Jesus and how they might take their next step in faith. Trinity struggles in the tension of who we are as a church, who we were, and who we're being called to be. Many people who have been a part of Trinity for many years see and understand Trinity as we were 10, 15 years ago, as a church of 550, and struggle with the tension between who we are now as a church of 1,000. Some wish things were the way they were back when they became a part of the church or when they were in leadership. But Trinity is living into this tension and asking the question who God is calling Trinity to be now. Trinity is faced with what to do with all the people that have showed up here on Sunday morning, many of different faith backgrounds and many who don't know Christ. Trinity's asking the question, God, how can we steward those that we've been given and help lead them to a deeper relationship with Jesus? Here's some facts about the history of First Reformed Church of Hospers. That church was founded in 1886, meaning over 130 years of ministry has happened as a part of First Reformed Church of Hospers. In 1919 was the dedication of their current church building. In 1960, there was an addition of an educational unit. In 1967, they completed the narthex. In 1969, the congregation voted to hold family night, which included Bible study and prayer time for adults and catechism for the youth. In 1992, worship reached its top attendance with an average of 220 people. In 2001, there was a change from family night to community kids club. In 2003, the new fellowship hall and kitchen were built. The current reality of First Reformed Church of Hospers is that they've been in a season of decline in Sunday morning worship since that peak in 1992. Currently, their average worship attendance this year has been around 86. And we've seen a steady decline throughout the last 20 or so, 25 years leading up to 2019. There are a number of fully invested but exhausted volunteers who care deeply about the ministry of First Reformed Church of Hospers, but many are on the verge of burnout. These people care deeply about the church and want to reach the community. There's been a change in the culture of the community of Hospers. It's no longer the same farming, agricultural-based community that it was. There is growth in the community, but less people are involved in the church or active in their faith. And Hospers really has a choice right now of what their next step is as they're in this time with a transitional pastor. Their choices are to decide they're going to do their next called pastor. They're going to try something like Enfolding with Trinity or whatever their next choice might be. We also looked at some of the statistical data that we could find on Hospers and the 5-mile radius around it. This comes from Mission Insight, which gathered all its data from places like the Census Bureau, as well as some anonymous data from surveys. So this is what those statistical reports said about Hospers in the 5-mile radius around it. Hospers has a growing population. Overall, the population is aging, though the demographic of young families continues to grow as Hospers acts as a bedroom community to other cities in the area. There are nearly 200 kids, middle school age and younger, in that 5-mile radius around Hospers. Less people are active in their faith or in the church. Churches are generally seen as hypocritical and out to get money. In fact, there are over 950 people in that radius that are not involved in any church, and that number is estimated to increase by 140 over the next 5 years. Interestingly, that 950 is out of a total population of 1,600 people. There's a general feeling of hopelessness for the community of Hospers. Now, we should clarify, this doesn't mean that Hospers is hopeless or that First Reformed Church of Hospers is hopeless, but rather the general feeling of the population that live in that 5-mile radius doesn't see a lot of hope in the community of Hospers, as many of their businesses have been either sold or overtaken by larger entities, as things continue to change around the community of Hospers. So now the vision team wants to present what we see as how we envision an unfolding happening between Trinity and First Reformed Church of Hospers. But our main focus and the most important thing that we want to hold up for everyone is the why. We know and understand that many people want to go to the details and understand what the nitty-gritty of how this will look and how it's going to affect me and my ministry. But what we believe is the most important thing is understanding the why, the motivation behind even exploring this idea. And this is what we would say is the why behind this idea of unfolding. We want to see a thriving gospel presence in the communities of Hospers and Orange City as we reach the lost with the gospel. The number one reason why we're exploring this idea is because we believe that this will help both churches reach the lost with the gospel. Along with that, we also want to see the region around Orange City and Hospers thrive as we, as those who are in the church, experience transformation and live on mission in the places that we live, work, and play. We know that it's so easy for churches to get stuck in the methods and the ways that they're doing things. And we want to see innovation in our methods so that we can continue to live out our original mission and not get stuck. And finally, we see that this unfolding has the possibility of paving a pathway for other churches to experience renewal. What Hospers is experiencing as far as a steady decline in attendance is not an exception. It's the norm for many churches in the region of Northwest Iowa. And our hope and desire is that not only can we see life, new life grow out of First Reformed Church of Hospers, but that many other churches that are struggling in the region could experience revitalization. So we know that enfolding and multi-site churches is kind of a new idea for us in this region. We don't see a lot of that happening in Northwest Iowa. However, when you look across the United States, you see that the multi-site church movement and churches enfolding and becoming one church in multiple locations is actually something that we see happening throughout the United States. So when we look to those, we can look statistically at what happens in healthy enfolded churches. What are the positive outcomes that they experience? So here are some of the main positives that we see when healthy enfoldings happen and healthy multi-site ministries happen. There's increased outreach. When churches enfold, they dramatically increase their outreach. In fact, multi-site churches are 86% more likely to be growing than other churches. We see increased resources. Multiple campuses share ideas, encourage one another, and can be more efficient with their staff and finances. I know it may seem like the opposite, that it's a way of spreading churches thinner to have multiple locations. But in healthy multi-site churches, we actually see an increase in the efficiency and use of resources. We see more involved followers. Multiple campuses means more people serving and engaged in the ministry of the church. We see improved quality. Launching another campus will help both locations rethink about how ministry is done and what will be effective in producing the fruit that we desire. And again, the main fruit that we're looking for is to see lost people to be reached with the gospel, and to see those that are currently know Christ to have their lives transformed and continue to grow. We also see improved leaders. Multi-campus ministry will increase leadership development in both locations. This will come as we see more areas in need for leadership and a higher degree of focus on leadership development. We're just going to need more people to step up and be a part of what's happening in both places. And that's one of the things that Trinity especially is seen as a positive, as we have many great leaders that are not being utilized because of the limited spots we have for leadership. As the vision team has met and talked about this why, what we want to see happen, and we think about our context of Trinity and First Reformed Church of Hospers, here are some of the guiding principles, some of the big ideas that we've really nailed down as a part of this. The first one is that enfolding does not negate what God has done in Hospers. Hospers has had a over 130-year history of God at work. There's been baptisms and professions of faith, ways in which God has moved and worked throughout its entire history. Enfolding does not wipe that away, but instead gives a new opportunity for another chapter of new life. Secondly, Trinity is the lead church, and Hospers is the following church. What we mean by that, by lead and following, is that when two churches enfold together, they come together around a single mission, vision, set of values, and culture. And we see Trinity being the lead church in that it has the mission, vision, and values that we're looking to implement in both locations. Trinity is not the lead church because they're bigger or because they have a new facility. Trinity is the lead church because we've seen how Trinity's mission, vision, and values have led to growth, have led to people on the fringes becoming a part of the church, and in some cases have seen the lost coming to Christ. The two campuses do not need to be identical, but they must be identifiable. What we mean by this is we're not expecting what happens in Orange City and in Hospers to look exactly the same. They can't. They're going to be in two different buildings. They're going to have two different sizes. There's going to be ways in which both places need to contextualize the ministry that's happening there. But we do want to make sure that they're identifiable, that they're going after the same things, that they're living out the same mission, vision, and values. Fourth, leadership structures need to facilitate that unity on the big things, the mission, vision, values, and flexibility for campuses to contextualize. We'll dive into leadership structure more in just a little bit. But again, that's holding together the tension of being together on the big things and allowing each campus the flexibility to decide what's best for them as well. That's how we're looking at structuring our leadership structure. Finally, you can expect change in the way that ministry is done. This will cause change to happen, both in Hospers and in Orange City. Change is hard, and we acknowledge that, but we want to be open to the change that's needed to accomplish the mission that we're after with reaching the lost with the gospel. We want to be open and open-handed in any of our methods in order to be the kind of church and fruitful in all of the things that we want to go after. We know change is hard, but we just want to say it up front. Change is going to be a part of this process. So let's get into some of the details. First off, we gave a brief update on what led us up to the point where we were at. So in August of 2017, Trinity sent their first worship team to help lead the Hospers community service. Since then, we've been sending regular people and worship teams to kind of help Hospers as they've transitioned to move towards a more contemporary kind of worship style. In July and August of 2018, Trinity's leadership team and the consistory of First Hospers met to explore enfolding. Coming out of those meetings, the consensus was that there's not enough meat on the bones. We don't have a clear enough picture to really decide if this is what we want to step into. So in September, a vision team was formed to develop a plan for how enfolding could look. That vision team had people from both Trinity and First Reformed Church of Hospers, and they've been working weekly since September to help put together a plan for what Enfolding could look like. In November of 2018, the Vision team presented that plan to the staff and consistories of First Reformed Church of Hospers and Trinity. And in December of 2018, the leadership team of Trinity and the consistory of Hospers voted in favor of recommending the Enfolding plan to our congregations. Now we see ourselves in a phase of communication and discerning with both of the congregations. So that's what this video is about. That's what our presentation on January 20th is about, is giving you as much information as we have and allowing you to ask questions, to push back, to give feedback, and for us all to seek God's will together. We imagine this process happening from January through March, a three-month process or so, where we're going to have regular meetings and opportunities for communication and answering your questions. Then we imagine in the spring of 2019, after listening to the voice of our congregations, the consistory of First Hospers and the leadership of Trinity will make the final decision on whether to move forward with Enfolding. If that were to happen and both of those leadership teams would move in favor of Enfolding, a transition team would be formed to oversee First Hospers through the Enfolding process. That transition team would have people from both Trinity and Hospers and would act as a campus leadership team. Also, a search team would be formed to hire a campus pastor, and that pastor would spend time building relationships with a Trinity team and recruiting that team to come over with Hospers from Trinity. December of 2019, we imagine, might be the time when Troy ends his time as transitional minister of First Reformed Church of Hospers. In January of 2020, we imagine that might be when a soft launch of the new campus would happen, where we would bring people over from Orange City to work together with people at First Reformed Church of Hospers to begin this new thing together. Then in the winter or spring of 2020 to have a full launch of the new campus in Hospers. Now, none of these dates or times in this timeline are set in stone, as things may take longer or shorter than we've planned out, but we wanted to give a general idea of what the Vision team is imagining as far as a process moving forward and a timeline. When it comes to the leadership structure, we believe that the overall decision-making body that will set the boundaries of budget, vision, and mission for the entirety of Trinity will be the leadership team, and that team will have representation from every campus. So there will be people currently at First Reformed Church of Hospers who would be on the leadership team as well to speak into this overall decision making. In addition, each campus will have ministry elders and ministry deacons elected in order to be the leaders in carrying out the ministry at each campus. There will be elders and deacons doing their roles on each campus. Between the Enfolding and July 2021, the Hospers campus leadership will be handled by the transition team rather than elders and deacons, ministry elders and ministry deacons. Here's a chart that shows more from an organizational charts how that might look. Again, we see the Trinity leadership team being the overall decision-making body. Then we see campus consistory, both in Orange City and in Hospers. Each consistory is made up of elders and deacons, and each of those elders and deacons will be a part of the ministry teams that they serve on. The Hospers campus will be led by a campus pastor who's accountable to the Trinity lead pastor. The campus pastor will supervise all other campus staff, and their main role will be in teaching, leading, and shepherding the Hospers campus. In addition to a campus pastor, we imagine that there might be a need for other part-time staff, such as in areas of children's ministry, worship, and communications. We don't know exactly how those roles would be filled, but we imagine that could happen either by hiring part-time staff or using hours from existing Trinity staff or interns. When it comes to our finances, we are hoping to move away from a yours and mine mentality to more of an ours. So rather than having two separate set of finances and budget, we want to move to one set of finances. Now, that being said, we will continue to track where each campus is as far as receipts and expenses, and each campus will operate within the guidelines of a budget that's determined by the leadership team, which again will have representation from every campus. When it comes to the facility, some changes to the facility may be necessary in order to accommodate the ministry and values of Trinity as the lead church. Now, we didn't change the slides even though we realized that the example we gave here, such as moving member mailboxes in order to replace it with a welcome center, is something that's actually already happened at First Reformed Church of Hospers. What we wanted to do with that example is to show that hospitality is such an important value for Trinity, and we want to make sure that our space and our facility represent those values as well. When it comes to the name, we feel that Enfolding means we're going from two churches to being one church. We want our language to reinforce the idea that we are one body that meets in different times and locations. We believe that the best choice is for both campuses to be known as Trinity. Now, we imagined possibly taking a new name together, beginning something completely new. But as the vision team thought about this, we came to the conclusion that Trinity has already become known for its vibrant worship, its hospitality, and its openness to try new things for the gospel. And we believe that reputation will actually help us reach people with the gospel. Each campus will be referred to by its location. Trinity Orange City and Trinity Hospers will be the campus names. This shows what a logo might look like for both of these campuses. And it's important to keep in mind that this is not the entirety of the logo. We have many other versions of this logo, some that just say Trinity, some that talk about our denominational affiliation, that talks about Trinity being a ministry of the Reformed Church in America. But this is just a mock-up that we did, wanting to show what a Hospers campus and Orange City campus Trinity logo and name could be. Finally, in order for Trinity and Hospers to enfold, several steps need to happen legally in order to satisfy the governing ordinances through the Reformed Church in America and legally. So First Reformed Church of Hospers would need to be disbanded and dissolved. It has to cease to exist as a corporation and as a gathered body of the RCA in order for it to be enfolded as a part of Trinity. That would mean that assets, liabilities, and memberships would be transferred through the classis to the new Trinity Hospers campus. At this point, I want to remind you again that the reason why we would do this, the reason why we're putting forth Enfolding, is really out of a desire to see lost people come to know the gospel. We want to see new life happen in those that don't know Christ. We want to see new life happen in the churches of Trinity and First Reformed Church of Hospers. We want to see new people coming through the doors of both churches. We want to see leaders involved. We want to see people growing. Those are the reasons why we put forth Enfolding. There's lots of ways in which we can imagine what this could look like, what kind of people it would bring, ways that would impact the communities of Orange City and Hospers. But again, We want you to see that the why is really rooted in this idea of reaching the lost with the gospel. So, just to review, Trinity and First Hospers have a choice of what our futures will be. The vision team believes that Trinity and First Hospers Enfolding will better help both campuses reach our communities with the gospel. We acknowledge that the process of unfolding will require change and loss for both congregations, but we believe that the harvest will be worth the effort. We believe that seeing lost people come to Christ is going to be worth the pain of change. And we're also excited for the ways that we can see churches working together to bring the gospel to our communities rather than competing with one another or fighting. So that's what we have. That really is all the information that the vision team knows, that the leadership has discussed. And this begins our time of discernment together. Our question for you is, would you take time to think about this, to process it, to ask questions, to give your feedback, and most importantly, to pray, God, is this what you have for us, for your church? We believe that wherever God leads, that it's our job to take the next step. We don't know the next 10 steps. We don't know even the next 5 steps, but we see this bringing this information to the congregation as our next step, and we want to process together. Please keep open and watch for ways in which you can be a part of this, and please talk to any of the leaders from your church if you have questions, concerns, or feedback. We want to hear what you think. We want to hear what God is saying to you. Thank you, and blessings on your day.